Hello everyone, I'm Jen and I make useful English Lit study videos on Shakespeare, poetry, fiction, literary ideas and more to help you become a literary expert. So if this sounds exactly like what you need, then make sure to hit the subscribe button below. So in today's video, we are looking at the theme of reputation and honour in the play Othello. Now these are terms often used interchangeably, but there's an important nuanced distinction between reputation and honour. Reputation is about how others perceive us, while honour has to do more with the intrinsic nature of our behaviour and character. In a nutshell, reputation is the external marker of our identity, and honour is our inner sense of self. Perhaps the most memorable quotation about reputation in this play is Cassio's lament over losing his reputation after getting into a drunken brawl with Rodrigo and Montano in Act 2, Scene 3. But I would argue that all the characters in Othello are primarily motivated by an anxiety over their reputation, honour, or both. Now, in general, the men in this play seem to be more preoccupied with their reputation. Cassio cares deeply about his professional reputation, Othello is haunted by the fragility of his outsider reputation, and Brabantio is perhaps ultimately driven to death not so much by grief over losing his daughter to the Moor, but by what he perceives as the shame of having to adopt a new identity as the father of a woman married to a black man, which he thinks sullies his public reputation as a formidable and respectable senator. On the other hand, the women tend to care more about guarding their honour. Desdemona maintains that she would never cheat on her husband as I am a Christian. Emilia speaks up against her husband's demeaning remarks about women and eventually exposes his villainy, while Bianca refuses to take out the embroidery work of the handkerchief from Cassio because she would not suffer from being treated like, some casual side chick. Then, of course, there is Iago, who openly disdains the importance of reputation and behaves in a wholly unhonourable manner. But a closer examination might reveal a more complex relationship that this antagonist has with reputation and honour. So with that, let's dive straight into this thematic and character analysis. With Cassio's reputation, perhaps the more interesting moment to look at isn't the point where he laments its loss, but earlier on in Iago and Rodrigo's conversation, when the sly ensign attempts to convince Rodrigo to get into a drunken altercation with Cassio by painting a vivid image of the lieutenant as a slippery knave, young, handsome, and most tellingly, rash and very sudden in choler. We know from Iago's comment of Cassio that Cassio's reputation as a hot-headed dandy precedes him. So it's somewhat odd when Cassio cries about the loss of his personal reputation because it seems that others already likely know his flaws, and perhaps what truly bothers him then is the loss of his professional station. More importantly, that Iago succeeds in framing Cassio and causing his demotion reflects that our reputation can often be a source of leverage for others' dealings with us. Because Cassio is known to be so emotionally reactive, Iago can confidently orchestrate a situation where the man's emotional reactivity will be easily triggered. Equally, Iago's casual smearing of Cassio as a slippery, devilish knave, and Rodrigo's quickness to accept this characterization, true or not, shows that our reputation is as much a product of others' commentary and sometimes slander as it is a reflection of our own behaviour. Of course, the way to prevent others from tainting our reputation is to consistently behave with honour. So when Cassio laments that he has lost the immortal part of himself and what remains is bestial, he reveals a conceptual misunderstanding about what makes one truly immortal in the sense of our higher inherent selves. It is our honour, how we behave, not our reputation, how others perceive or paint us, which forms the essence of our true character. Ironically, Iago, the man with the least amount of honour in the play, understands this distinction between reputation and honour very well. As when he responds to Cassio's despair of losing his reputation with the following: "As I am an honest man, I thought you had received some bodily wound. There is more sense in that than in reputation. Reputation is an idle and most false imposition, oft got without merit and lost without deserving. You have lost no reputation at all, unless you repute yourself such a loser. Now, there's an interesting syncopation of internal and half rhymes in false, got, lost, when Iago remarks that reputation is an idle and most false imposition, oft got without merit and lost without deserving. The sonic association of these three words signal a paradoxical essence about reputation, namely that acquiring and losing reputation are essentially one and the same thing. To Iago, neither means much, because reputation is a fabricated, flimsy ascription which could be this today and something else entirely tomorrow, often subject to the whims and fancies of whoever's making the judgment, very much arbitrary. Reputation, then, is not an essential part of our identity or psyche, but an outward label that anyone can design and fashion at will. Really then, one can't lose reputation. It is but a mirage that we or others fashion as we deem fit for purpose. By the way, guys, if you find this video helpful so far, I'd massively appreciate it if you could hit the thumbs up button below and subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on any of my top grade lit study content going forward. I'd also encourage you to check out my membership program by clicking the join button below if you want exclusive access to members only study content and make special video requests. I'll see you there. With Othello, though, one way of interpreting his tragedy is that he gradually lets his obsession with reputation get in the way of behaving honourably, despite his original intentions. Perhaps this stems from his racial self-consciousness. As a Moorish foreigner in a white Phoenician society, his public image is all the more subject to scrutiny and skepticism. Despite acknowledgement of his professional competence and military prowess, Othello's status as a black man and his sensitivity to this fact means he feels a constant need to justify his moral sanctity and social value. At the start of the play, Othello's honour and reputation are aligned when he delivers his charming speech about how he came to win Desdemona's heart with romantic, exotic tales of his travels, history, and his youth's suffering. He had used no witchcraft to seduce the woman. She fell in love with him because of his extraordinary experiences and the nobility that comes through from his having lived through incredible incidents. Towards the end of the play, though, when Othello makes a last-ditch attempt to salvage his reputation after realizing the grave error of his uxoricide, his wife-killing, he understands that the same approach of fashioning a romantic self-identity with rhetorical lyricism will not ever restore his honor, and hence his ultimate act of committing suicide, because while his rhetoric may mend his reputation somewhat, it is only in taking such an extreme, definitive action of killing himself that he can finally resuscitate his honor, as we see from his last speech. Soft you, a word or two before you go. I have done the state some service, and they know it. No more of that. I pray you, in your letters, when you shall these unlucky deeds relate, speak of me as I am, nothing extenuate, nor set down aught in malice. Then must you speak of one that loved not wisely, but too well, of one not easily jealous, but being wrought perplexed in the extreme, of one whose hand, like the base Indian, threw a pearl away richer than all his tribe, of one whose subdued eyes, albeit unused to the melting mood, drop tears as fast as the Arabian trees their medicinal gum. Set you down this, and say besides, that in Aleppo once, where a malignant and a turbaned Turk beat a Phoenician and traduced the state, I took by the throat the circumcised dog and smote him thus, after which he stabs himself. So anyway, the desperation in Othello's tone here and his realization that words are futile are very much reflected in the anaphoric sequence of one that loved not wisely but too well, of one not easily jealous but being wrought perplexed in the extreme, of one whose hand, like the base Indian, threw a pearl away richer than all his tribe, of one whose subdued eyes, albeit unused to the melting mood, etc. That he needs to try 4 times to characterize himself in different ways suggests that Othello finds the task difficult, frustrating, and ultimately unsatisfactory, which, ironically for this very talented orator, culminates in him giving up on rhetoric and words altogether and resorting to the brute final act of killing himself. The suicide, then, not his speech, solidifies the depth of pathos that Othello's characterization can activate in the audience, because it allows us to once again see him in the light of an honourable, albeit deeply flawed hero, despite the moral ghastliness and reckless judgment we had just witnessed in his murdering of Desdemona. Now, compared to the men in the play, Desdemona, Emilia, and Bianca behave in ways where their reputation and honour are much more aligned. While they do care about their reputation and how they are perceived and portrayed by others, specifically by the men in their lives, the female characters seem more concerned with whether they are actually behaving honourably, regardless of external judgments. While Desdemona does seek reassurance from Iago at one point about whether she is that name, whore, which my lord calls me thus after Othello humiliates her with insults like strumpet and whore, thus demonstrating a concern for her reputation, she is primarily concerned with the actual integrity of her actions, as when she confronts Othello after he accuses her of cuckoldry. "By heaven, you do me wrong. Are you not a strumpet?" "No, as I am a Christian. If to preserve this vessel for my lord from any other foul unlawful touch be not to be a strumpet, I am none." "What? Not a whore?" "No, as I shall be saved." "Is it possible? Oh, heaven forgive us." So it's clear from Desdemona's claim of "I am a Christian" and her wish to be saved that the woman's fidelity and behaviour are very much guided by an internal, faith-based locus, which isn't contingent upon how others perceive her. After all, while others cannot see what we do in private, God sees all sins, and Desdemona cares about heavenly salvation. Her adherence to Christian morality is later reinforced in her exchange with Emilia in Act 4, Scene 3, where her speech is peppered with Christian diction. For example, in the phrase, "Good faith, how foolish are our minds, know by this heavenly light, heaven me such users send," etc. On the contrary, from the way Othello keeps framing Desdemona in demeaning archetypes like strumpet and whore, we see that his priority when it comes to his wife is just as much, if not even more, about her outward reputation, because a negative one sullies his own and subjects him to humiliation, rather than with her actual honour, i.e. whether she is a truly faithful wife. Likewise, Emilia cares more about behaving honourably on her own terms than with how Iago, her husband, portrays her to others. For instance, while Iago early on tells the audience that he suspects an affair between Othello and Emilia, by the end of the play, virtually no one is going to believe this from having seen how Emilia behaves, and of course from witnessing Iago's own pathological deceitfulness. Some critics infer from Emilia's mild protestation of "you shall not write my praise" towards Iago's insult of women as players in housewifery and housewives in your bed that she is a somewhat submissive wife. But I argue that instead, what she demonstrates here is a kind of pragmatic strength and an economy of focus. Emilia doesn't bother too much with what her husband says, maybe because she doesn't really take his words too seriously to begin with. But when it comes to guarding her honour as a woman, she will resolutely speak her truth, which we see at the very end when she cries out against her husband's villainy, villainy, villainy. "Good gentlemen, let me have leave to speak. 'Tis proper I obey him, but not now. Perchance, Iago, I will never go home." Now, Emilia's tone here is trenchant and powerful, as she decides to no longer cover up for her husband despite being aware of her wifely duty, and the cultural expectations of a wife complying with her husband's commands. For a Renaissance woman from a commoner background like Emilia, a decision and declaration as extreme as "I will never go home" could very much result in social banishment. And yet, Emilia takes this radical step, reflecting that at her core, being a principled, honourable person who stands up for the truth is far more important than maintaining the outward reputation of her wifely identity. Finally, Bianca may be a courtesan whose social reputation is implied to be lowly by virtue of her trade and strongly suggested by Emilia and Iago's insults towards her as a strumpet, but Bianca actually shows that despite prejudice and judgment against her, she will guard her honour and retaliate against anyone who tries to tear it down. Courtesan or not, she has a hefty dose of self-respect, which explains why she refuses to entertain Cassio's request for her to take out the embroidery of Desdemona's handkerchief, as when she says, "This is some minx's token, and I must take out the work? There, give it to your hobby horse. Wheresoever you had it, I'll take out no work on it." And of course, when she openly rebukes Emilia's insult of her as a strumpet, when she retorts, "I am no strumpet, but of life as honest as you that thus abuse me." So Bianca's case then reveals that an individual's reputation can sometimes be an unfair, inaccurate formulation rooted more in social prejudices than in their real character or the true extent of the individual's honour. While all the women in this play show a higher degree of concern for their personal integrity than their public image, there's a hint of irony in that Desdemona, despite being of a higher social status than Bianca, lacks the latter's vocal audacity and strength of will to clear her name and refute both Iago and Othello's false characterizations of her as a loose, unfaithful woman. This suggests then that just as much as others could smear or mold our reputation with their words, we must also exercise our own vocal power and agency to fight back against any willful misrepresentation of our reputation. After all, in a world where perception is often more impressionable than actions, simply relying on honourable behaviour and holding ourselves to a high moral standard may not be enough for self-protection. We must ultimately also defend it openly and courageously. And that's it for my analysis of reputation and honour in Othello, everyone. I hope that this has given you plenty of ideas and material to examine this super important theme. For your next video, I will recommend that you watch my 3 key context in Othello overview, which will give you a solid foundation for understanding themes like reputation and honour, and of course the other ones in the play. If you're studying the play, make sure that you check out my extensive Othello playlist, which is jam-packed with character analysis, thematic deep dives, and sample essay walkthroughs. Hit that thumbs up button below if you found this video helpful in any way, so that you too will know to spread it to other passionate lit learners like yourself all around the world. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and switch on that bell notification icon so that you never miss out on my future weekly videos. You can also consider joining my membership program for exclusive video requests and essay review perks. Check that out in the description box, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!